Stash 720 is a fast investing stock market game where you use power cards to make smart investments and stop your opponents making theirs. It's got all the excitement of blackjack. I know I spent a lot of time when I was younger playing blackjack in the common room or at school. And I think Stash 720 surpasses that, or at least the feeling of playing blackjack anyway. This is a game of risk and reward. You get to understand financial terms. It lasts around 15 minutes each game, and it helps broaden your knowledge of the stock market. I want everyone around me to be financially literate and to be an investor and not just a consumer. And I think this game helps with that. I'd love you to check it out. Stash720.com.
So, tell me about yourself. Tell me where you're from, where did you grow up, and what do you do?
Okay, well, hi, I'm Tahlia, and I'm the founder of Sheer Chemistry. I guess we'll start from the beginning.
Please.
So, I was born and grew up in Sydney, Australia, which is why I have a little twang. And so I spent the first 15 years of my life as like one of very few black people in any space. I have a twin brother.
Oh, wow.
So I can't say I was the only one because we did most things together up until the age of 15. Well, that's kind of a lie because we went to different schools.
Did you go to a boys' school or a girls' school? Or?
Yeah, so he went to a boys' school. I went to a girls' school for high school. But primary school, we went to the same school. We were both school captains. Well, of course, the first black. But even then, that wasn't really a thing then because it was just us, you know.
Did you ever hang out with Indigenous Australians? Was that a thing?
I had a few friends growing up, but not too many, to be honest.
Well, there's not too many around. I don't know if there's a
well,
big population of them out there. Is there?
They're very integrated into society, so it's not really like they're. Well, in some respects, they're in their own communities, but you know, you'll see them on the street. They'll be in the shopping centre, and they'll blend in like everyone else. So you won't necessarily know that they're Indigenous unless you've kind of lived in Australia and you know their facial features.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had a really good friend, Michaela, in high school who was Aboriginal. And she was wonderful. But I guess moving forward in my journey, so I moved to London with my family at the age of 15. My mum called it like a trip of broadening our horizons.
All right.
And so she said we'll be gone for a year.
Was your mum born in Australia?
No. She so my mum was born in London, England, and my dad is born in Jamaica. They met here.
Are they both Jamaican?
Yeah, both of Jamaican heritage. So I'm 100% Jamaican.
Good for you.
And they're a bit adventurous. So my mum was like 6 months pregnant with my sister. And my dad got a job in Papua New Guinea. So for those who don't know, it's attached to the little island of Indonesia. And so they lived there for 3 years. My sister was born there. And then they moved on to Sydney afterwards and stayed for 25 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So most of my family live in London, like my extended family, cousins, aunties, uncles. So you can imagine when I came at 15, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is what family feels like. This is what family looks like. Oh my gosh, there's so many black people here. Like I feel so like at home. Yeah. So I felt like coming to London was really connecting with my culture and identity. And like my mum says, it broadened my horizons. And then we never left. So I never know if that was the real intention to stay or if it was actually supposed to be a year. But, you know, the rest is history.
Yeah, it is. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, cool. So you're the founder of Sheer Chemistry. And how did you find yourself in that industry?
Yeah, so I guess the question that people often ask me is like, you must love tights. And as
interesting question.
I am aware of tights, but I wouldn't say I'm fanatical about tights. So the journey was one I kind of landed in it because it was something that I wanted but I couldn't find. I guess the
so you're fixing a problem. really.
Yeah.
Which is a great way to kind of get into an industry.
Of course. But I think it really stems from the beginning story about growing up in Australia and then coming to England. Why that's significant is because in Australia I never had access to anything black. And so I was very aware of that, you know. But then London, I expected to have access on high streets for makeup, hair, all these things that I was coming to age of. And then, you know, going to, you know, mainstream stores like Boots and Superdrug, and I couldn't find my stuff. And I'm like, but there's all these black people, I just don't get it. And then after university, I moved to New York for a year. And I think I had more of an expectation, like, there's so many more black people. I expect to have these things in
Which makes
shops.
sense.
So I think it's the progressive journey of, and the expectation of having, and then finding that actually I need to go to, you know, Harlem to get my stuff, or I need to go to Walthamstow or Brixton to get my stuff, where why can't I just get on Oxford Street? So it happened to be the fact that when I was in New York, I had an expectation that I could walk into any store and find brown tights on the shelf.
Are you able to do that in New York?
No. And I was like, what? Like, this
weird,
is crazy. So I was like, this is not okay. Like, it would be okay in Sydney. I would kind of accept it in London, but in New York, this is
crazy.
Like, I
It's
draw
way
a
too
line.
many.
Like, I have to draw a line somewhere. So I think the history is really important here. So I was just like, this is unacceptable. I'm in New York, the most cosmopolitan city in the world, and I can't find brown tights.
Which is why Friends, I don't know if you've ever seen Friends, it's a bit of a weird casting issue with Friends because there's no black people in it and you're in New York. So it's odd. Odd, but we've been kind of indoctrinated to believe that, like, you know, it's either one way or the other, but we should be able to have access to the things that we need, right?
Exactly. So as I mentioned, it was a product that I needed. I went to these department stores and I found shades of nude, which were all beige. I bought them, I hoarded them. And then when I wore them, I felt really uncomfortable, self-conscious. My legs looked ashy. I always felt like people were staring at my legs because I'm sure they were, because they're so gross. And then I just thought, you know, someone needs to do something about it. And I thought about writing letters to the brands and saying, you know, you need to see us. And then I thought, well, what are they going to do even if it lands in a good place and they're like, actually, I want to help this girl. What are they going to do? And I had to think about, how would they serve me? And even with the best of intentions, they couldn't. So I thought, well, I'm better placed to serve us as a community. So that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to start a brand that celebrates the diversity of the different shades of brown, and it celebrates the diversity of people of color and allows us to feel confident and gorgeous in our own skin.
Amazing. That's dope. That's really nice little story. Okay, so cool. So, did you have dreams of being an entrepreneur as a kid? Is that something? What was your dreams as a kid? That's a better question. What were your dreams when you were younger?
Yeah, I think the earliest dreams that I had is to be an Olympian, to be honest. Yeah, that
really.
was...
What sport? Did you have a specific sport?
Yeah. So I did track and field throughout my childhood.
Yes, hence the running, because I've seen you running before and all that type of stuff.
So I used to be like like a serious runner. So I started athletics at the age of 5. And there's something in Australia called Little Athletics, which you do up until like 14. So I got to national level at about the age of 11. And until like last year, I held like the state record for 200-meter hurdles.
Okay, wow.
So yeah, I was like a serious...
Too fast then. If it's 200 and hurdles, pretty quick.
Yeah. So and then I think the first year that I came to this country, I represented Essex for the English schools in the 200. hurdles. So yeah, that was what I wanted to be. I wanted to be an Olympian.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. And it's kind of taken this turn, but then maybe there's some connection to dedication, hard work, perseverance.
Yeah.
And I think there's probably some connection there.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it before, and I've seen even retired athletes that kind of move on to different areas, and I think there's definitely a connection. For putting in work and actually getting achieving a goal at the end of something and putting hard work in. So maybe that was.
I think absolutely. I'm so grateful for kind of my background in athletics. Like I'm not a competitive runner at all. Like in any shape or form right now. But I think it did teach me like everything that I needed to know about being an entrepreneur, and about the long game, and about pushing through pain and mental toughness and all of that stuff, because being an athlete of any shape or form is not fun. Most of the time.
I know what you mean. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like there's fun parts of it, like the outcomes that you get are kind of fun, but the actual doing of
like
it's not always
training,
fun. Not competitive anyway. Not a competitive level.
Most of the time, it's not fun. Like I've always had like a really strong community around the sports that I do, which is probably why I continued for so long. But I think. I look back and think, when I'm going through these business challenges and I'm thinking, this sucks, and I don't know where this is going, and I'm not motivated anymore. You just kind of have to keep on going. And I think about the 3, 2, 1, and you kind of, you can't feel your legs.
Yeah.
You've got lactic acid everywhere, and somehow you find the energy to sprint.
Yeah.
Like a whole 400 meters somehow. And one of my coaches used to have this saying, like, breathe and push, It's just about continuing, like finding the energy from wherever. So yeah, I still use that. And so I guess in my later life, I've got into longer distance running, just as a way to kind of decompress and kind of, I find it quite meditative, if that's a word.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because that's kind of what I was thinking. It was kind of going to be one of my later questions. Because I think it does help many people, and if you're saying it does help you, for me personally, it helps me clear my mind. If I'm running, I don't really do a lot of long distance running. I've done a little bit of running in the past, but I know you can get to a state where you're running, you don't even really realize you're running. You might be listening to music, and you can kind of just get away in that short space of time, however long that is, and just run. But I also think there's something connected to us working out as people anyway.
Yeah.
As human beings, I think we were born to catch our food. Really, that's kind of how what our bodies are for, and we're supposed to be able to do that until the age we die. So us not doing that, kind of sitting in front of the computer and what have you, some people might feel a bit stagnant with their life and what have you. And I think sports and working out and athleticism has something to play in a part of a successful life.
Definitely.
And I kind of thought there is kind of also a connection there from you doing that and working out.
Yeah,
so that's
I think
good.
so.
That's great. Okay. So did you have an interaction with businesses growing up? Did any of your family have businesses, or did you have an inkling for business? Did you have some sort of insight, or how did that go growing up?
Not really, no. So my mum was a lawyer, is a retired lawyer, and my dad was an engineer. So I guess just two very professional people. But I think they both have very kind of creative outlooks on life. So I think I admired that from both of them. But they never really pushed me down any particular road. My brother has always been entrepreneurial and has always been selling something, whether it's tracksuits, trainers, cars. From cool. Basically the time we stepped foot into this country, he's been selling something. And I always used to really admire that trait of his, because he could sell anything to anyone, and he's still like that to this day. And so at some point after I decided that maybe athletics wasn't for me, which came after an injury, I thought, I would really like to be this international businesswoman and travel the world and make something, So I never knew what that was going to be, but I just liked the idea of being an international businesswoman, which led me to study international business.
Oh, fantastic. So you went to university, did you?
Yeah, I did.
And that's what you studied at university?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. So did you get a job in business before? What was your kind of first job, and what was your last job? Are you at Share full time?
I am now. Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So yeah, what was your first job and your kind of your last
So
job?
my first ever job was working at Halfords in Tottenham Hale, retail, cool. Which I actually loved. I love retail, and most the first few jobs were all in retail. And I think what I liked about that was just interacting with people.
It's research now. You could say it's almost research.
Yeah. And so, I had no, some people are like, oh, retail standing on your legs for 12 hours, whatever. That never fazed me. And I just loved the buzz of it and the randomness of it. Yeah. And you never know who you're going to meet and what's going to happen in a day. I loved it. My last job, so last year I was contracting with Somerset House, and I was developing a pilot program for Black entrepreneurs called the Black Business Incubator, which was about helping creative entrepreneurs build sustainable businesses, which I loved because it kind of married my two passions. So prior to starting Sheer Chemistry, I worked in HR, specifically in learning and development. Okay. So my early career was about graduate development and helping, young early career people find their feet and reach their full potential. And then later on, I moved into high performance programs. So developing executive directors, managing directors, and helping them kind of elevate. So it's always been about, developing people and skills and things like that. And so then now I'm in the entrepreneurial world. And so then marrying my passion with entrepreneurship and just Black empowerment with, making sure that everyone's got the skills to be their best self.
Including yourself, as well. That's really cool.
Yeah, and it was a great community. So I was working with an incredible guy called Akil Benjamin, who's the founder of Mental Black Business. And so he created the whole concept and the vision behind the Black Business Incubator, but I was the person who was doing the doing. Which was a wonderful job, and I'm very privileged to have experienced kind of because it was the first time that it was being done. So there was no blueprint. We really created it. So I guess now the first cohort has graduated, which has been so inspiring to watch. And they've now moved on to recruiting another 2 cohorts. So I felt that my job there was done and it could survive without me. But I guess it just emphasizes kind of my 2 loves in life, which is developing people and entrepreneurship.
Okay, so I'm going to come back to the uni stuff in a minute, actually. We're going to come back to that. But you said your father was an engineer and your mother was
a lawyer.
A lawyer, that's it. So, and that was in London for the period of time, for the big period of time. So, would you say that you grew up with money or without money? How did you say you grew up?
I would say I lived a comfortable middle class upbringing. me and my brother went to private school in Australia. So yeah, I can't say we struggled, but we didn't have everything,
Do you think that's affected you in business or in any way, negative or positive?
I think it's been very positive because I think it's given me quite a high risk tolerance. Because I'm like, well, if it doesn't work out, I know I'll always land on my feet. So it's not ever been a question of, I'm not going to eat or I'm not going to have a place to live. I've never experienced that and I'm never going to. So I think it's given me quite a privileged position of safety, even when there is none.
So yeah, that's the funny thing, is because sometimes it's the other way. So some people say they kind of need the no safety net that kind of helps you, but sometimes the safety net helps you, and then you can do whatever you're going to do because you realize that it's probably not going to be that bad. I'm going to be all right. Even here, it's all right. Even in this country, to say the truth, we have social care and what have you. So generally, it's really never probably going to be that bad, and it's more between our brains of like what we feel that it's going to be as bad as it's going to be.
Yeah. So I think I'm very risky. Like people are like, you're leaving your job again. I'm like, yeah. Well, if it doesn't work out, I'll get another job.
Yeah, sounds like me. That sounds a little bit like me. So, what made you what gave you the idea to do the last, for your last job, to say, well, I'm finished now. I'm gonna do share chemistry for the foreseeable future for as long as I can, and what have you. What was the thing that made you that little jump?
There's been, as I said, there's a lot of little jumps. And I always say, like, I try not to use the word big leap or anything like that, because it just I find it overwhelming and it can lead to inaction. So I've had a lot of little leaps. I think one of the little leaps is I was working in investment banking in HR, as I mentioned, and I thought, this is quite a high pressured environment. So I was thinking I do like my job, but I might transition out into another industry, which is a little bit like more low key. So without much research, I thought, the legal sector. It was terrible.
I've worked in both. I've worked in both. They're kind of similar.
I would say the legal sector is way worse. Way worse.
But you were doing HR though. Yeah. Well, then, do you know what I mean? I'm within the company. It's slightly different. But I guess it.
But I went into recruitment though. So even though it's in HR, so I went into recruitment, which is quite reactive, and then I went into the legal sector. And I thought my job before was like stressful, but this was like way worse. And I didn't enjoy it. And I don't think I was naturally good at it. So it just forced me to just reassess my decisions. And I thought, okay, I'm going to leave. I stayed for about a year. I'm going to leave. I'm going to explore sheer chemistry, because I was not doing anything sheer chemistry. So that was the first little leap.
So back to that real quickly. So then how long was the run up to? It's very difficult, because the question I'm going to ask is how long you've been doing sheer chemistry. But it's not as easy as that to say how long you've been doing it. So if you could tell me like the conception of idea, the probably lull where you were kind of doing it and not doing it, and then the time you're doing it.
Okay. I will give you some timelines. So I was in New York from 2011 to 2012. That's where the idea of sheer chemistry came.
Right.
I decided for sure that I was going to do sheer chemistry in 2013. So that's when I registered the first business. And then I was muddling around while I was working full time from 2013 to 2017 when the business officially launched.
Okay, cool. That's cool. But because it's the thing, I think it's the reason why I ask is that sometimes it's a mystery for like why when these things happened, and then people think, oh, you've been working on it for 10, 11 years,
Yeah.
and no disrespect, it's like, why is it only at this level or whatever? But it doesn't work like that. It isn't, you know, we did this, and now we're that. There's loads of changes and shifts within lifestyle as well. It's like you as a person, you went to another country, went to this country, and you know, things change. But that's cool. It just gives us like a little bit more of a picture of the road. Okay, cool. So that was kind of like the road of you working for yourself. What are some of the things that you kind of like about working for yourself?
I just like the freedom to create, you know, and I think it's quite empowering that you can just have an idea and then you can make it something.
Amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah,
That's
that interacts with people.
It is. We're like little gods. That's what God does. God creates stuff and we just create things and it becomes the thing that, you know, we created, and that's amazing.
I think there's nothing that beats that.
Yeah.
But I also love the interacting with people. Which is what I really missed during COVID, because we used to be at pop-ups all over the place, at least once a month. And I loved it. Like, a lot of people don't like doing pop-ups, but I love it. And I thrive in that environment. So I like making the connections. I like putting on events. I like making the connections. And I think that's my favorite part. Of course, I haven't done as much of that. But that, I think it's not just the interacting with people, but it's the reinforcement. Okay. So one of the first pop-ups that we did was Afropunk in 2017, which is a music festival that celebrates Black creativity, really. And I just remember, you know, Black women like squealing, like, oh my gosh, tights for Black girls, you know, and just the excitement. Yeah. And then the stories that came out of it.
Because you're on the ground, you get to actually see it.
And, you know, and you hear the stories and you hear about, you know, when they didn't have it, they were told to wear nude tights for school or for their first job, and how that made them feel. And that, you know, and how impactful it is seeing us now, 20 years on, 30 years on, for some people 40, 50 years on. You know, I got an email from a 75-year-old woman who heard my interview on BBC Radio. Okay. And she was like, I used to work at John Lewis, like in the 50s or something. Okay. And I had told them so many times that they needed to have nude tights because that was required for us to wear as part of the uniform. Yeah. And now, like, they have it, and I'm just so proud of you, you know? And I'm just like, you know. It's lovely, of course. So yeah, it's just like those little moments, you know. It's nothing like big, but
that is kind of big sometimes. Yeah, exactly. It means a lot. So do you have any things that you kind of dislike about working for yourself?
Yeah, just the whole being in charge.
I thought that was the good bit.
It is the good bit, but it's also the bad bit, because it means that if I don't do anything, nothing gets done.
The buck starts with you, and ends with you. It's just all you. Yep.
So I think sometimes I wish that there was someone telling me what to do. But, you know, as I said, it is a good part as well. So it's just about finding structure, finding your own rhythm, finding a routine, which I think has been quite impactful for me, like having a routine and a morning flow.
What's a day like in Tahlia's life?
Well, it really varies. Like, for example, yesterday was a bit of a crazy day. I try and start every day. Well, I do start every day with meditation. It should be a 20-minute meditation, but depending on what the day is looking like, it might be 5. And sometimes
it's good. Sometimes 5 is good.
Is okay.
20 is pretty lengthy. Like, if you know, it can be lengthy, but it's good that you can find 20 minutes to do that. It's amazing.
Today I did it on the way here, you know, on the way to London. And that was fine. So I start with my meditation, and then I have to leave the house. So I put on my trainers and I go. It might be a walk. It might be a run, depending on my mood, but it's just down the road and around the park and back. Nice. You know, it's about 2.7k or something. And then I have my tea and my breakfast. I have a shower, and then my day officially starts. And then I do an hour of admin. Yesterday I had an interview with BBC Nottingham. So I went into the radio station, which is only like 10 minutes from my house. I got the bus back. I had a call with my new colleague, who is a partnership coordinator, and we were just going through what she's doing for the day. Then I was preparing for a new product launch today, so doing the finishing touches of the website. Then I had a driving lesson.
Okay.
For 2 hours.
So you're learning to drive. That's good. That's good.
I need to know how to drive. And then I did some stuff in the afternoon, like admin-y stuff. And then I had to go to storage to sort out the stock that's going to Waitrose for a delivery on Friday. And
it's full though. It's a full day.
It was a full day.
You're doing a lot. Is it always like that? Is it do you get time for yourself?
I do, and I guess that's why it's so important to start with time for myself.
Exactly. And that's great that you kind of you bake it in, like it's in there, so you have that for yourself. Do you have that generally over the week? Can you say, I'm going to do this weekend? Are you able to have that breathing space?
Definitely, and I think it's something that I prioritized quite early on, because I realized that without it you can kind of spiral into just a mental health black hole.
Overworking.
So Tuesdays actually should be my swimming day or my bar class. So I did go to storage with my swimming costume in my bag, but I didn't actually make it, which was quite upsetting. But yes, normally Tuesday is carved out for an activity. Most evenings actually is carved out for an activity. I've started doing public speaking thing, Toastmasters.
I do.
So I started doing that on Wednesdays. Thursdays I go running with the local run club. Fridays date night. I have most days carved out for something that's non-business related.
As it should be.
And it just also allows me to meet new people because I'm in a new city. Yeah, my weekend, I like it to be quite free.
You get to do your weekends for yourself.
Yeah.
So it's great. That sounds like a nice. It sounds like a full week. Do you know what I mean? Where you're actually doing work, but then there's stuff for yourself, and you have a life. Do you know what I mean? And that's probably like the best thing if you're able to be an entrepreneur. And it's not for everyone. It really isn't. But if you are able to do that, and then you can have that balance or create that balance, then you're in a really great place. So tell me a little bit about the names of the tights, the different cities. Explain that to me.
This brings me such great joy when people ask me this. So I guess it started because typically when you come across things that are brown shades, they're things like chocolate or mocha or mahogany, which a lot of the time is like a sweet edible good, but sometimes it's just kind of a mundane object, which doesn't really say anything about who we are, what we do, what we like. And so I just think, especially because it can be so political, I want the shades to be something that is us celebrated and really define us more with who we are, where we've been, where we're going, and some memories that we cherish, So that's why I named the tights after cosmopolitan and desirable cities.
Nice.
They happen to be 5 of my favorites.
Okay, which are?
And everyone has a story. So the first one's Havana Glow.
Okay.
Then there's Rio Romance. There's New York Soul, Nairobi Sunrise, and Parisian Dream. So the concept is like whatever the shade is, even if you're like really deep dark complexion and your Parisian Dream, I want you to be like, oh, that sounds so beautiful.
Amazing, yeah, that sounds amazing. Sounds great.
And I went to Paris for like my 21st birthday, and it was so much fun, and we went here, and so it's the joy of whatever happened in Paris, or oh my gosh, I really want to go to Paris for my anniversary, and it's going to be amazing, So I think they're cities that you have a positive association with, and I have a positive association with, and a memory from whatever that experience is. So my shade, for example, is New York Soul.
I was going to ask you that.
Okay. Sorry, I jumped the gun.
It's all good.
So New York Soul, the idea behind sheer chemistry started in New York, but more so, like, as I explained, I just graduated university. I was really finding myself and discovering who I am as an independent woman in the world. And then it was just the battle of, you know, what do I want my life to look like? What do I want my relationships to look like? What do I want my spiritual life to look like? Because then I found Christianity when I was in New York, and it was a real tussle of identity and what I should and shouldn't be doing and who I should and shouldn't be with. It was really life affirming, I would say. But I felt like in the process I found my soul. So that's why it's New York Soul.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's dope. I really like that. I like that. Okay, cool. So what was the process for finding the shades that you found? Do you mean, did you have to go through, like, was it color swatches, or what was the process like?
Yeah. So I didn't have a background in fashion or anything, so most of the things I did quite intuitively. So in my mind, I had to create what I thought was going to be 6 shades of brown. So I thought, okay, what reference points do I have access to right now? And at the time, in around 2013, there were still companies like MAC and Bobbi Brown, who were in the cosmetic space, who had quite an extensive color range. Yep. So I went to MAC counters in Selfridges and the standalone stores, and I would talk to the makeup artists and get their intel, and then I would collect all these little, you can get free color pots, shade swatches, and I would, just so that they didn't think I was strange, but a lot of the time I would actually tell them what I'm doing, and they would be really fascinated and really helpful. But I would collect all these little pots from around the way, and then I had these big A3 sheets of paper, and I would, you know, color grade them, and then I would group them, and at the same time I was doing a survey, because I thought, you know, let's do a survey. But it was about, you know, tights, buying patterns, but more so I wanted to collect what makeup everyone was wearing.
Okay.
So then I had a database of like hundreds of women's makeup shades, and then there were dominant shades. So then it kind of aligned with what the makeup artists were saying about, you know, the most popular shades and what everyone was telling me, because then there was this really cool website back in the day. I think it still exists. It does, because I've been on there recently. It's called Foundation, and basically it aligns. It's like a user-generated database, and it aligns multiple brands with other brands. So what I was able to do is align all the shades to MAC.
Oh, cool.
And then just have a huge MAC database rather than having some Maybelline, some, you know, other. And that defined my 5 shades. So then
Smart. It's good. Smart. Makes sense.
So even though I thought that there would be 5, I mean, I thought there would be 6. 5 really stood out. And then when I eventually found a manufacturer, I actually sent them the pots of foundation.
Right. Okay. That's cool. So is there kind of a popular shade? Are there popular 1 or 2 that kind of a lot of people use?
Yeah, so I guess aligning it to sheer chemistry, the most popular shades are a New York Soul and Nairobi Sunrise, which I guess if we're talking about celebrities, it's kind of a Michelle Obama and, you know, Venus or Serena Williams. So those...
So for tights in general, it's never obviously been a problem for me. I've had to buy tights, but I can imagine that being an issue for people to kind of have equality, and we did kind of touch on it before. But what do you think it kind of means to people to kind of have to be able to go into a shop and find tights that that match them.
Yeah. Well, I guess, living in a city like London, I think a lot of the time we assume that, it is inclusive and things are truly representative in the mainstream. But sadly, we mostly know that that's not the case. So I think having these products available, and especially on mainstream shelves, I think allows people to feel seen. To feel like they are important and worthy of the time and investment that it requires to create a brand.
Yeah.
That not only sees them but really understands them for their authentic self. So I think that's why it's so important, because it's not about just ticking the box or doing it for clout. It's just like we really, really do see you and we understand you and we want you to be your best self and we want you to go to all the achieve all the dreams and goals that you've set out for yourself, and there's no limit to that. So I guess in a product, we really want people to feel empowered and confident and gorgeous in their own skin.
Of course.
But yeah, it's all about feeling seen and celebrated.
Do you know that plasters are made for European colours?
Yeah.
As well as ballet shoes?
Yes.
So ballet shoes were, that's why they are that colour. They're for European skin.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because we think, I don't know, we're just put into that culture, we're indoctrinated and just think, well, that's how they're supposed to be. And it's good that you kind of was able to step outside the box and say, okay, well, maybe this isn't right.
Yeah.
So you said you went to, just jumping back quickly, you said you went to university. Did you have a student loan when you went to university?
I did, yeah.
Is that paid? Did you manage to pay that off? Or was
I'm still paying that.
They're still paying that off. Okay, that's fantastic. Yeah, well, that's like everyone. And did anyone tell you, did you have any classes or anything about student finance or student loans or anything like that?
No, I've never had any kind of lessons in finance, which it's crazy when you think about it. I think the only time I had a rude awakening of my complete ignorance of finance was I went to, I think it's called the Black 360 conference.
Yes, I know the 360 conference.
Yeah.
I know the lady that runs it. Yeah, it's good.
So I thought I was going to a business finance conference, but it's more about personal finance.
Right.
And it was a rude awakening because people were talking about things that I've just never heard talk about, about pensions and savings and how to do that and what accounts to open and investments and stocks and shares. Like, I know all these words are thrown around, but like never directed at me.
Yeah.
And I just thought, shit,
A lot.
I do not know any of this. And I feel really bad because at the time I would have been, I think it was in 2019. So, I'm in my 30s. And this is all just brand new. And I felt kind of like slapped in the face.
Yeah, I get it. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I obviously we should talk about this stuff a lot more, and that's one of the reasons why I want to talk about it and why we're here, kind of thing. And just so we can open that conversation and continue to talk about it as much as possible. So so you obviously went talk about it in school, either like a secondary school. No. What would you like in secondary school as a student, as a young adolescent?
I think I was quite a studious person.
Yeah.
I think
good grades.
I've always been like a high achiever. Yeah. I think the one thing that has always gone against me is just my lateness and inability to meet deadlines.
Okay. Yeah, deadlines are for other people, right?
But I think I was always quite a hardworking student. And then of course there was the sport part. So yeah, I enjoyed school. Yeah. I really did. Especially English. Which I wish I did pursue more. But yeah, I enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it. Okay, so what would you say are is or are the main things that made you the Tahlia that you are today?
I would definitely say it's kind of my international upbringing.
Okay.
So I mentioned that I lived in Sydney, but I think a huge part of what made me, I think, a well-rounded individual, like in the early stages, is our family had students for years, for like 10 years, or we've had like hundreds of students stay with us who kind of become an extension of our family. Right. And over the years, so this started from probably when I was about 5 years old. So we had like students from China and Italy and Brazil and everywhere. And so it was kind of like the world was coming to us.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so in a weird way, even though I didn't first travel until I was probably out of Australia until I think I was 12, or something like that. It was a very like international, very open childhood. Okay. Because I'd learned bits of Japanese and I could count in and say some words, but it was more so because we were living with these people and they would tell us about their culture and they would cook their food, so it was an immersive experience. So I think that's as well as my parents being quite traveled global people, and that's what led me to be so open to the world. So during university I had a sandwich year and I went to Brazil, and then afterwards I went to New York, and so I don't think I would have done that without that exposure. So I think that had a huge impact on my life. I think also just growing up in Australia and being a minority of minorities. And I guess one of the questions people always ask me when I say that I'm Australian is like, are there black people there? Which, it's a valid question.
I guess. I guess. Because of the media and what have you, but...
But I guess why I'm so grateful for that childhood is because it was a very small Caribbean community in Sydney, but because it was so small, it was very close-knit, and everyone knew everybody. And if you saw a black person or ran into a black person, you would say hello and be like, what's your name? And who's your mum or who's your dad?
That's cool.
And then there would be some interaction, and there's probably, their aunt or their mum or someone. And it was nice, warm and fuzzy. Like if you saw another black person in the street, you would at least nod or smile, at least. But most of the time it was a lot more than that. So growing up in that environment, yes, there weren't many black people, but it was so warm, and we were part of something called the West Indian Association, which, we would all meet up. I can't remember how often, but let's just say once a month. And learn about our culture and about, the cultural dances and all of that stuff. So I felt very in touch with my Jamaican Caribbean heritage, despite growing up in Australia, which people are like,
It's the same here, though. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people live here and still have a connection to their roots. Like I do, I was born here, but I still have that as well. So I understand. That's cool. But there's something to say about moving into different countries, travel in general. A lot of people say they like travel and what have you, but travel, there's something special about travel, and opening your mind, seeing other things than what you've seen for the last however many years. You said you became Christian, and I've read the Bible, and one of the things when I reread some of it, the New Testament, I was like, I want to find a link in there or something that jumps out. And one of the things I found is that Jesus traveled a lot from place to place. And I think there is something to say about that because, I don't know, meeting people, being open, not seeing yourself just as just you and the end of your own nose or, the end of your street. The world is so big. And I think just traveling just opens your brain a little bit more to the idea of that. So it's great. So can you tell me something that you've kind of learned? I know that well, I've kind of been following Share Chemistry for the last couple of years or what have you, and it seems like there's been a shift in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years or something like that. Could you tell me, what have you learned in the last 5 years, and what would you tell yourself, the 5 years younger yourself? Like, if you could go back 5 years and be like, this is going to happen, do this, what would you do?
What have I learned in the past 5 years? So Share Chemistry's been going for 5 years now.
You had a birthday. You had like a 5th birthday.
Yeah.
So yeah, like 5 years.
Yeah. There's so much, because I feel like I've grown as a person dramatically in this time. But I've learned about just the power of having a vision, really. Because I think it's crazy to think, and we spoke about it briefly before, it's crazy to think you can have an idea and then you can execute on said idea, and then it's out in the world and people are interacting with it. So if I can do this, what more could I possibly do if I put my mind to it? So I think if I could go back, I would tell younger Tahlia to dream bigger. And to be more audacious. And also, I would definitely tell her to get investment.
Okay. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about that. So I'm guessing this was more bootstrapped. It was more yourself and what have you. Tell me what the benefits of bootstrapping, and tell me what the benefits of what you see the benefits would have been if you got investment.
Yeah. So bootstrapping, I guess you have to be. It's great because it stretches your creativity. Okay. You know, if you have to do a photo shoot and you've literally got £1,000, you make it work. You know, you ask favors, you think, who do you already know that could possibly volunteer their time, and you get it done. You do get it done. But it just means you have to be creative of maybe where it's taking place or who's involved and all of that stuff. But you always come out with something super creative. Yeah. So I think bootstrapping is not a bad thing, and I'm grateful that I have done it that way. It also means that I guess you just have to think of ways to make it work, you know? And so I always knew from the beginning that I was going to get into retail. And from the beginning I was pitching to retail, and I didn't really know how to do it, but I was in their DMs, in their email inboxes, in everywhere, stalking them online. And you know, we got there eventually. It did take a few years, but again, I guess the difference between getting investment and bootstrapping is that you just are fully equipped with the resources that you need. I've been basically a one-woman band for the most part. I did have a digital marketing assistant working with me last year who was amazing, but she moved on to bigger things. And now I have 2 people working with me. So I guess it's a constant learning, because it's kind of a chicken and egg, because there's so many things that you need to learn in business before you get money, but then at the same time you want the money so that you can do all the things.
So would you like to get money now? Is that something that you would like to pursue?
That is something that I am going to be pursuing soon, because, and with hindsight, I probably wasn't equipped to take investment, to be fair. So I feel like only now
you would have learned. I'm sure you would have learned, but at the same time you've afforded yourself to kind of learn at your pace. There isn't a pressure of you know, someone saying to you, well, you know, we put money into this, what are you doing? Do you know what I mean? That type of thing. So I guess it's all in good time, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. That's cool. Well, tell me about what prompted you to move to Northampton. Nottingham. Sorry, yeah.
It's close.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me what prompted you to move to Nottingham.
So I guess, like everybody in the pandemic, it just forced me to think about life, where I am, Am I happy? Why am I here? Why am I here? All the deep philosophical questions, you know. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I love is the flexibility, the freedom, you know, to do anything, to be anywhere. And so then it forced me to ask the question, why am I in London? And do I want to stay?
Right.
And what is it giving me? You know, and during the pandemic, you know, it was limited because everything was closed. There was no more events. Yeah. And so then I thought, well, the UK is a really big place, actually. I didn't think that prior to the pandemic, actually.
Yeah. You think it was London and Manchester or something?
London. Just London.
Just London. Okay.
I would be a person who said, like, why would you want to live anywhere else? Yeah, but I guess we were forced because, you know, of lockdown to only move within our borders. Yeah. And then I went to places that I'd never been to, and I was like, oh, this is actually nice.
It's cool, right?
People live like outside of London.
Traveling further than your own street. That's it again, right?
So I guess it was a different concept of traveling, because my idea of traveling is leaving the country. So my mind was really opened up to the possibility of other places in the UK. And then on top of that, London is just super expensive. And so it was just thinking about, okay, well, if so me and my partner were thinking about going somewhere, we didn't know where, and then we thought, okay, well, where should we go? I went to university in Birmingham, so I'd had some experience living outside of London, and it was a positive one.
Yeah. Birmingham's cool. I got family in Birmingham. Birmingham's cool.
Yeah, it's good. And then my partner went to University of Northampton, actually, and had a positive experience there. So then we liked the Midlands, and the prices were looking decent.
Much better than London.
So
for
much
what you
better.
get anyway.
So much better.
Yeah.
And so then we went for a weekend, and we thought, let's see how it is, how it feels. And it felt great. And so then we decided that we're going to move there. And then we moved.
And how does it affect with the tights industry? How does that kind of connect?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, actually. And one of the reasons that led us to Nottingham. So Nottingham has a history of lace, textiles, and actually hosiery. Okay. Those industries are kind of dying in the UK, so they're not as prevalent. Yeah. But Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire have, in history, been renowned for those things. So I do actually have quite a few hosiery contacts in Nottinghamshire. Nice. So that was also one of the other reasons why it just seemed right. So yeah, I was thinking about kind of looking 2-3 years ahead. Where would I want Sheer Chemistry HQ to be? Yeah. And in a city with legacy of hosiery manufacturing and textiles, and thinking about the financial side, just being more affordable, and having lower overheads, and having access to great talent because of the two big universities, Nottingham and Nottingham Trent. Yep. It just seemed that's perfect.
Yeah, sounds smart. That's good.
Yeah,
that's good. I like that. Yeah, I like that. So tell me, you're in 66 John Lewis shops?
66 Waitrose stores.
Waitrose, okay.
And 6 John Lewis stores.
6 John Lewis, okay. Fantastic. Could you tell me like the road of getting there? I know you said you were kind of in their DMs and speaking to them. Could you tell us a bit more about the road of getting into those shops?
Yeah, so I guess it was, you know, when you start a business, well, in my case anyway, I approached it with quite a lot of naivety. I only know that now, looking back. Yeah. And so I thought, you know, when I started Sheer Chemistry, I thought it would take me about 6 to 12 months to get it off the ground, and then another probably 6 months to get it installed.
Yeah. How did that work out for you?
Not great. Yeah. So I can remember the first email I sent to John Lewis was probably around 2016, 2017. So as I mentioned, the Sheer Chemistry launched in 2017. Yeah. And I did get a response because I'm quite a good emailer. And but the response was, we've tried something like that, it hasn't worked, but good luck. So it wasn't terrible. Right. And I actually wrote this long rebuttal.
Okay.
And with stats, and there was like infographics and stuff. And then I came back to it probably like a day later, and I was like, sounds a little bit bitter. And so I never sent it.
Okay. So at least you had the opportunity to actually look at it again and say, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah. So then I probably sent something like, oh, thanks for your feedback. I look forward to keeping in touch, or something short and sweet. So fast forward like another 2 years, and I had an opportunity to pitch to them, to John Lewis, as part of a program with Enterprise Nation called Meet the Buyers. And I actually used some of the stats that I created when I was sending
the bitter email.
Yeah, and I used all the stats because I'd done research about demographics in London and why sheer chemistry is perfect, because it's really serving the markets that the customers that they're serving. And it was it had a lot of media information. Anyway, I used that in the pitch, and the pitch went really good. And the woman was like, I'm really surprised that we don't have a brand like yours, but for whatever reason it didn't go anywhere. That conversation didn't go anywhere. So that was around 2019. So now we get to 2020, and then of course there is the tragic murder of George Floyd, and everyone is kind of has this rude awakening that diversity is a thing.
Yeah, and it matters.
And it matters, and they need to be more proactive in how they actually serve their diverse customers. Also in line with that, John Lewis hired a new chairperson who is a black woman. Okay. And I knew this, and so she was high on my list of people. Yeah. I happened, just the law of attraction.
Yeah.
I happened to stumble across an event on Instagram that she was going to be a keynote speaker on. It was an online event. This is in 2020. Okay. So I thought, oh my gosh, I need to go. And funnily enough, the day that I saw it, the conference had already started. So it was a 3-day conference. I think we were on the second day that I was seeing it. Okay. But she was speaking on the third day.
Perfect.
And I was like, okay, God is good. And then, so I attend the event, I make notes. She's wonderful. It's talking about the future of fashion retail. And then on the back of that, I email her, linked to the conference, nothing about me. Okay. Conference. Mm-hmm. And then I say, it was amazing to hear you speak. Really loved what you said about X, Y, and Z. Yeah. I want to take this opportunity to introduce myself. Right. I've already had, meetings with Sarah and Lucy. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere, but I do think sheer chemistry would be perfect for John Lewis, etc., etc.
Good timing.
And then
the stars aligned.
Literally, she emailed me within the hour.
Yeah.
And introduced me to the head of trade, and then I had a meeting with the buyers the following week with the woman that said, actually, we don't need your products right now. But it was a different time. Yeah. Strategies change, perspective change.
But also in her position, it makes more sense to say no than it does to yes, doesn't it? Yeah. Really? Because you're not gonna. Well, sometimes you can, but it's more of if they get it wrong, you can get fired.
Yeah.
But if you say no and continue doing the same stuff you've been doing all the time, this has always worked.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like a safe place. So you kind of understand why they do that. Okay, so cool. So you're in all these stores now.
Yeah.
Did you have to fulfill a certain amount of products, a certain amount of shelf space? How did that kind of work actually getting into the shop?
Yeah, so they, of course, they order 2 times a year, let's say, but there could be up to about 6 to 8 drops in those 2 times. And so it was just about having the necessary stock. The funny thing the annoying thing about hosiery is the minimum order quantities, which is quite high. I won't go into the science of tights, but the minimums are quite high. So it means that a lot of the time I'm sitting on stock, which makes the whole retail play perfect.
So were you able to finance that yourself to buy it, or?
What did I do?
Beg, borrow, and steal.
Yeah.
Loans.
So I guess talking about loans. To start Sheer Chemistry, I had a Virgin startup loan. I think at that point I think I might have had the bounce back loan.
Okay.
Yeah. Which supported the buying of stock. Because I haven't had any other support. But the bounce back loan was really good for me in just helping with cash flow.
So it's like opportunity, isn't it? Really, you can see it as one thing, but sometimes it's kind of an opportunity to kind of help you.
Yeah. So it was really useful for me. I'm not gonna lie.
So some people say that like the high street is kind of dead. And online is the way. And to tell you the truth, it's not even so much forward thinking. It's now, like, most things are bought online. Like, most people are buying online.
It's true.
So what would you say are the differences, the pros and cons for like online and in store? And okay, before I ask that question, why did you choose to go retail rather than say, well, I'm just going to make this an online product?
Well, I guess with tights, because it is quite a tactile product and people still want to kind of put their hand in to check their shade and things like that. And I guess people still view it as kind of a high risk in terms of, will it be right for me?
Okay.
So it made sense to me to have an in-store presence of some sort. I guess prior to the pandemic, it made more sense. But yeah, that was kind of the rationale behind being in retail. I'm completely for the online part, and we started as an online business and will always be an online business. But I think they work really well together.
So what are better? I'm guessing there's better margins online.
Yes, there are.
So do you push that? Do you see yourself going solely online, or how do you kind of see it?
I don't think we'll ever really be solely online, because the B2B side of the business is really important, and a growing side of the business. I don't restrict it to retail. That's going to be a small segment. But when I say B2B, for me, it's about where can Sheer Chemistry appear as an essential item of costume or uniform. So we're going down kind of the airline route and the hospitality route and kind of the dance school route, because it's like an essential part of what you need as a day-to-day employee.
Makes sense. Okay, so can you tell me any like key moments of failure? Kind of like working with also like your distributors and stuff like that. Is there anything you?
Yeah, so I think one of the most pivotal moments I think in Sheer Chemistry was when I'd been really fortunate to find a good manufacturer very early on. One of the things I did in the beginning was just go to events because I didn't really know anyone who was starting a business, so I thought I should meet them. So I went to an event at the London College of Fashion, and there was a woman who spent some time on the panel talking about just the difficulty that she's had finding a great manufacturer. So I asked her a question, naturally. At the time, I'd gone on Google and found all the tights manufacturers in the UK, and I was like, oh, I don't know who to contact or if I should contact them, because at that time I thought someone's going to steal my idea. I guess in the early days you think that,
kind of, the amount of work you've had to do to kind of get to this stage is like, who would kind of want to do that? Yeah.
Exactly. So I was holding on to this list and not doing anything because of this fit. So I asked the question to this woman saying, trying to start a hosiery brand. I don't really know who to trust, and I don't know how to protect myself. What advice would you give? And then she spoke about the legal side and NDAs. And then she said, oh, and I also have a friend who's in the hosiery industry, like, speak to me later and I'll exchange. So her friend was like she was called, or is called, the Queen of Tights.
Oh, wow.
She's a pretty big deal in the hosiery industry. And at the time, owned mytights.com, which was the largest tights distributor in the UK, which means she knew everybody in the industry. So she introduced me to a few manufacturers. One of them I ended up going with and doing all my product development with. But where it broke down is I guess like a lot of businesses, they went through a lot of like account managers.
Okay.
And so at some point, it was suggested that I go direct to the manufacturer.
Okay.
And I thought, great, because my costs would go down. It's more kind of direct communication. But the problem was I'd had the contract with the intermediary, I'll call them. So I needed, in my mind, I had to redo the contracts because now we're working directly.
Yep.
And so I had some pro bono legal support from a good friend of mine who was a trainee lawyer at the time, and she enlisted the help of her firm, which was amazing. And so they drafted a contract. So it's not like this Italian manufacturer had to do anything. It was just sign on the dotted line, just to like NDA, protection and stuff. And then it was kind of this time of year because Italy closes down for summer. And I tried to get it in before, like it was like the beginning of July, which is ample time to get this done because they close in August. And they just kept on saying, oh, our lawyer's not here or gone away for summer and all that stuff. And so I thought, okay, I'm just going to have to wait till first week of September. So it gets to September and then they're like, we're not signing it.
Okay.
This is like a back and forth for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And then they say, we're not signing it. We're never going to sign it. And I was like, what's the problem? We're happy to make changes. It's a negotiation here. And they didn't really give any plausible or coherent response. So then because I really wanted to launch the business then. I can't even remember exactly. This must have been 2016. Because I wanted to press go on the manufacturing, but I'm having this legal contractual issue because we'd finished, and then they don't want to sign a contract. And so then I was like, kind of my timeline of, I really want to get this done and out to the world because this is the timeline that I set and we're here with the kind of ethical, moral obligation of, but you don't have the adequate legal protection and you don't know what these people are going to do or if they're going to run away with your money or whatever. So then I decided, so I held an emergency meeting. I had two of my good friends working in the sheer chemistry team, and I held an emergency meeting. Unfortunately, only one of them could make it. And I made the executive decision that we're going to go ahead.
Okay. Do it anyway.
And then the next day, which was very strange, but just, I guess, I'll tell the story. So the next day, I happened to run into the other friend. I bumped into her in Canary Wharf. I never go to Canary Wharf, but I was living in Greenwich at the time, and I needed to get a late post office, and Canary Wharf is the closest late post office, and I bumped into her. So I told her the kind of crisis, like in a nutshell, and she shouted at me in Canary Wharf shopping centre and said, Tahlia, this is your reputation. You've worked so hard. This is so like this. You're making a mistake. Like, don't do it, And then I was like, she's right. She's actually right. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to listen to her. And I later found out that this business was going into administration. And so I could have easily got burnt.
So they could have just took the money, and then because they're going kind of bankrupt, they don't have to pay it back or anything. It just gets absorbed, and they can do whatever they want with that money.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. That's super interesting. But that's a save.
It was a save, but it just meant, I guess, going to Italy by myself, and I got back on Google. At this point, I was confident enough to know exactly where in Italy I wanted to find my manufacturer. I kind of knew what I was looking for. I'd shortlisted a few people, interacted with them, got the samples, and then within 2 weeks of making that decision, I was in Italy having meetings with new manufacturers.
Great.
So it was empowering, but at the same time, it was kind of a rude awakening of like, this stuff matters.
Yeah.
You know, and you kind of have to like not just talk the talk, but walk the walk. And so it's also kind of emphasizing the support system that you have around you, because I thought I was like operating like fine, but it was my friend who pulled me up in Canary Wharf, and she didn't care. She's like, this is ridiculous.
But at the same time, I don't blame you. Sometimes I don't know, maybe you talk yourself into things and thinking, well, it'll probably be okay anyway. What's the worst that could happen? You know, maybe they just don't want to sign it by trapping themselves into something. So you just say to yourself, okay, I've got to keep moving anyway. I need someone to make my product. Just go for it. Do you know what I mean? And there's some instances where that is the right move to make. And this kind of wasn't that, but. But at the same time, you saved yourself. You're lucky that you bumped into that person. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think it's more than luck, you know?
Yeah, there you go.
But yeah, so I think going back on what you said, it's about the values that you have, and you kind of need to be consistent. So I would say, even if I think you need to check yourself with everyone you're working with. And if they don't align with your values, I don't think you should work with them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's really good. Okay, so what's your relationship with share chemistry and social media? How has that helped and not helped you?
So social media is an interesting one. I guess my personal relationship with it is I just don't really like it.
Okay.
And I think if I weren't a founder of a business, I don't think I'd be on it.
Okay, same.
But I understand that it is necessary in terms of growing a business and building a community. So I've kind of learned to tolerate it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get it, and I think we're not too far the similar age, and we didn't grow up with that, and it's great for young people, and it's still great for all ages.
Yeah.
But for me, it really doesn't. I don't think it sits really well with my personality of how I behave and broadcasting certain things to the world. As much as it's fun, it's still nice to do some things. But I feel like the level that you have to do to be successful, quote unquote, successful on social media, is really intrusive.
Yeah.
So it's not always, for me, it's not always the most exciting thing to do.
Yeah.
But also, because it is as important as it is, there's a way to do it so it fits you.
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think finding the thing that how it can benefit you and how you can do it so it's not so intrusive. Maybe.
Yeah, and I think I'm finding that balance. Like yesterday, I posted for the first time in like 2 months on sheer chemistry, and so it's about what do I want to say and how do I want to show up, and not just doing it for the sake of posting, because that was really grinding me down. Yeah. I want to have something to say, and I know on social media a lot of the time people don't, but you, as you said, you want it to be authentic.
Yeah, that makes more sense to make it authentic, so people can see that. I think people can see when it's not and when it is. So you said you had a marketing, someone that worked with your marketing. Did they deal with a lot of the stuff you did for the last couple of years? Because some of the stuff is really good that I've seen for marketing. Yeah. Did that come from them? Was your ideas, or how did that kind of work?
Yeah. So last year I had a digital marketing assistant working with me, and really she had autonomy of what goes on social media. We would kind of work together on kind of themes, but then she would go off and create things, which was wonderful because sometimes it's really good to see the brand from someone else's perspective and how they interpret it and want to communicate to the world, which sometimes I just wouldn't think of, and that also just took off the burden of social media and scheduling. I didn't have to think about it all of last year, which was wonderful. But again, since this year I have been back on it, and really inspired by the work that she did. It allowed me the momentum, and then I just crashed and burned.
Thank you. Yeah.
But yeah, it's good to have kind of another perspective.
Cool. So on to like more personal finance stuff that we kind of spoke about before. Are you able to save money? Do you save money? Do you invest in anything apart from obviously the business and time and what have you? Do you have any ideas of saving investments?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, prior to stumbling on this Black 360, which I think was 2019, so at the end of 2019, so took me into 2020 and the pandemic. So after that, I bought the Dave Ramsey book, Total Money Makeover, which I thought was a good kind of starting point in getting more so my head in the right place, and thinking about money, because I would have it and I would spend it and that was it. So from 2020, I think I've been a lot more intentional with how I handle money, and then opened an ISA last year. Which seems very late, but I guess,
And that's as I said, savings are saving. It's free tax. Like, it's good. Like, go for it. Do you know what I mean? Why not?
So have been intentionally saving.
For something specific? Or for future? Or
for my first house, actually, which I'm hoping to purchase next year.
Fantastic.
Let's speak it into existence.
Go for it.
So I've been a lot more intentional. I've also opened the stocks and shares ISA at the same time. Nice. Which I haven't really dabbled with as much as I would like. And then have also been playing with Crowdcube, so investing in small businesses.
So with Crowdcube, though, you invest, but it's kind of an angel investment, really, is it not? Like you're putting out to trying to build other people's businesses in the nice way, and maybe not get so much back.
Well, hopefully in the future at some point.
That'd be great. So, and with your ISA, your stocks and share ISA, I'm guessing you're not putting as much in as you put in your thingy. But for me, I've always thought that kind of works very similar. Mm-hmm. And obviously, saving and investing are different.
Yeah.
But if you got stock and shares account, you get to put the money in there, which is kind of like saving, and the investing part is just choosing which vehicle is going to take you to the place where you get to go. And I think there's a disconnect there, and I'm not sure why. I guess it's because it's the safer thing. So like saving, you're going to safely put that money, and 9.9999 times out of 10, it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And when you're investing in a security, a stock or what have you, there's a chance of it kind of going up or down and what have you. However, if you invest in certain companies that you see being around for the next 5-10 years, there's a good chance of that going up. So I kind of see it as the same. I don't know why my point is there's a big disconnect.
Yes.
But you can put your money into a stocks and shares ISA, which is almost the same as a stocks and shares saving account.
Yeah.
But you just get to choose which company or which thing is going to go. You can say Apple, Nike, Coca-Cola. Choose. Yeah. And then it kind of, you hope that in years to come that it's going to go up. But I don't know, there's a massive disconnect. For us.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think the disconnect comes with a choice. Like, I know it's like the best part, but I think for me, that's the overwhelming part, because there's too much choice. Like, what do I choose? What's the right choice?
Of course, there's fatigue and it's too much. Like,
because then I thought, I'd set aside like a day. I'm gonna research and work out what I should select. And then I was just bombarded with all
It's
this
too much.
information.
It is
And then
too
I
much.
thought, okay, well, maybe I'll just, do an index fund or whatever.
Which is probably the best thing.
Yeah, but then I was like, but is it the best thing?
According to Warren Buffett, like the biggest investor, he says to do it. But there's truth in what he says.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean? If you're gonna get an index, a lot of the time he says to do the S&P 500.
Yeah.
Which is like 500 of the biggest stocks in the world, which is like America. And you're basically betting on America then.
Yes.
You're then saying, oh, well, America's going to be good in 5-10 years, which they probably are. And I always think to myself, if a lot of people are sometimes scared of losing money. So if you would lose money, it would go to zero. You put £100 in, and then the worth of the S&P 500, that index would go to zero. The issue with that is if it goes to zero, we have much bigger problems than you losing your £100 because the biggest companies in the entire world are zero.
Yeah.
So there's an unlikelihood of that kind of happening. But yeah, I think everyone has that disconnect, and it'd be nice to kind of continue having these conversations for us to kind of realize that it's maybe not as scary as first thought.
Yeah, I think so, but I think it's just the novelty of it for me. Which, I think I will become, I guess it's like, building a muscle. And I just haven't got that muscle yet.
Yeah, of course. You got to train.
Skeletal.
You got to go through the pain. Yeah, you got to go through that pain again. So do you, have you ever any plans of how you'd make money after, 60, 65, 60, I don't know when the kind of retirement age is?
Yeah. Well, I guess one of the asset classes that I'm interested in is property, which is why I kind of want to get on the ladder. I haven't really decided what the strategy is going to be. I'm interested in buy to let. I'm interested in kind of flipping. So I'm going to go with the flow, just kind of save for now, do some research.
But that's the goal. You're thinking that, maybe there's something in there within property, because property is so attractive.
Yeah.
Like, it's so attractive.
Yeah.
As anyone that's interested in business, like, real estate is just a great business. People are always going to need houses. People are always going to need a place to stay, even buying land. God's not making any more land.
Yes.
So it's like, it's for them cliches, there's a reason behind the cliche, right?
Yeah.
So so it's just great, and it's one of the best things that I've ever been involved. Purchasing a house, and I think the point with anything is just starting, and and that's what you're looking to do is kind of start. And I think for retirement, that can be a really easy option. Obviously, pensions are great. We don't talk about it enough, probably because we feel immortal. I think humans think they're immortal. We do.
It.
There's a part of us think that this is going to happen forever.
Yeah.
It's not, is it? So, but also like a house, even if it's just a second house or a third house or a fourth house, that can kind of set you up for the latter part of your life.
Yeah.
Or even buy to let, if you're doing a couple of those, there is some sort of rental income, especially depending where you're buying it. Probably not London, but there's something in that, and sometimes that's a great strategy. That's kind of maybe enough for you to.
I guess also looking at it outside of London, it just seems so much more lucrative.
Yeah, and feasible.
Feasible.
Yeah.
Feasible. I think that's the word, because it's not going to take you 30 years to save for a house. You can do it in a couple, 1 or 2.
And do you think any of your plans for finance would change if you were to start a family or anything like that? Was that type of thing you've ever thought about?
Yeah, it kind of, it's a little bit overwhelming to think about, especially as an entrepreneur. I actually went on, I guess part of my financial literacy journey is I signed up for something called the Rainmakers Academy, which is run by someone called Davinia, who is called Raincheck, her organization, which is empowering women in investment and finance. So I did that during lockdown, and it was quite empowering in terms of setting myself up, and one of her kind of premises is getting protection, personal protection, like insurance. So it's I can't even think of all the names, but critical health and all that stuff. So if anything were to happen to me as
have
an
you
individual,
thought about that? Have you?
Well, yeah. So I've now got all of that stuff.
Well done.
And life insurance.
Yeah, because you're not working for a company anymore as well. It's not like you get sick and they kind of pay for you.
Exactly.
Like, it's not like that anymore.
So if anything, terrible, like I had a terrible illness, hopefully, touch wood, that won't happen. But I guess you need to think about these things.
Yeah.
And mitigate against these things. So I insured myself up. So I guess thinking about the question that you asked is, what happened if I would have a family? That is one thing that I needed to think about. And then I just need to sort my finances out.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why I'm thinking about, what kind of assets am I going to be acquiring over the next few years. I will actually be investing in the stocks and shares, ISA, like actually doing it, and stop being like, afraid. And then property. Those are my two things. Because I just think at this point, I just lack financial stability, and I couldn't even really, of course it will always work out, but I don't think I could confidently say I can have a baby right now, because it's just not, it just wouldn't be financially sound.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, and I like I said before, it's always having the conversation. Just have as many conversations as you can. Even if you don't have to always get into deal. If you want to throw me a text or call me or speak to people around you that kind of know about this stuff, I think that is like the worst thing is to not say anything and just kind of bury your head in the sand. I think the more conversation we have about it, the more open we are, the kind of more achievable it seems, because we're kind of having these conversations. And that is why I've kind of started this podcast, so we can have these conversations so much more. It becomes easy, like in other cultures where they have dinner conversations about money, right?
Within the Black community, we definitely do not talk about money enough. There's two things that I'm quite passionate about. Number one is negotiating pay.
Okay.
And I've tried to advocate that within my sister circle, because I just didn't really appreciate how many people just accept the first offer.
Yep.
Especially women, which I think is ridiculous, because even when I'm saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it, there's such a resistance, and even just being open about how much we're all earning.
I think that's important.
I think it's very important.
Because that's when the lies are told, when no one knows, when,
Exactly. And then the second one is life insurance.
Okay.
Yeah. So I know it's a very contentious topic.
Because of the mortality of humans.
Yeah, but I don't really see it that way.
It's going to happen to everyone. I promise you.
Yeah.
It will happen to everyone.
Yeah.
So let's talk about it.
And I think it's like when we're talking, because I feel like we're all so concerned, and rightly so, about building generational wealth. But then what happens if something goes wrong and then you're passing on debt to the next generation?
Yeah, that can't be good.
That makes no sense.
Good. Yeah.
So then we can just do something really simple to mitigate that.
Right.
Really simple. Like really simple. I think I pay like £29 a month for life and critical health insurance.
Yeah.
It's like that simple.
That's it. And then you're done. Then your costs are paid for, when the time happens,
Yeah, and I know that I'm not that the word burden is a good word, but I know that I'm not passing on any debt to anyone,
Have you ever been in any like big debt at all, or serious debt, as it were?
No. And the funny thing is, the only debt that I do, apart from like overdrafts, that I do hold are business debt.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Most companies have business debt, though. I guess if you're, especially with yours, I'm guessing your inventory is a big issue, so you have to pay for this big amount of inventory. So that kind of makes sense. Okay, a couple of questions there. Do you see yourself as a rule breaker or someone who abides by rules?
I would say I'm more of a rule breaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a time and place for rules.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you use debit cards or credit cards when you?
I've never owned a credit card.
You've never owned a credit card?
I've never
That's
owned
interesting.
a credit
Why
card.
have you never owned a credit card?
I don't know. And it's so...
It's not a problem. It's just, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Has anyone in your family owned a credit card? Do they use credit cards?
Well, the thing is, I don't actually know. I don't know the answer as a...
Credit cards is like, it's just, you're just borrowing money for a short period of time.
Yeah. And the thing is...
Which helps you.
Yes.
In this setup, this social setup that we have.
Yeah.
Borrowing that type of money, when you're paying it back.
Yeah.
Regularly, on time, completely and in full.
Yeah.
It's good for us.
Yes, and I've listened to a few interviews. I can't quote who they were, but just about advocating about the use of credit cards as a primary source of expenditure, and I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, cause, most of our find is general. Like your parents are a big deal with, well, I know mine are, for like your financial habits and how you spend and what have you, and sometimes that can be seen as a negative, but really how I see it, if you're doing it correctly, it's a positive. There's ways you can get money back, you get cash back from credit cards. You also spending someone else's money. If anything happens unlawfully, fraud or what have you, you've got protection. So there's many reasons why a credit card kind of makes sense. So I'm guessing you're just your normal credit, you buy things. So you debit, you have a debit card and you buy things when they come.
I think, to be honest, if I look back, the first kind of appearance of credit cards was during university, and I think it was just more of a self-awareness. I know myself, and I know that I will be irresponsible with this thing. Therefore, I'm just gonna push it to the side, and I think that's just kept with me.
Okay.
So it was more that I knew that I would be financially irresponsible.
Okay,
and
but then that makes
shouldn't-
sense.
shouldn't
That makes sense.
one.
Maybe you should stay away from that.
But I feel like I'm a very different person now.
Yeah. Okay. So do you have like a budget, like a monthly budget, or do you?
I do. It doesn't really get adhered to very strictly, though.
Okay.
But that's one of the things that I'm trying to put in place.
What would be one of the most expensive things you've ever bought for yourself?
For myself,
else?
probably like. I want to say a laptop, but there's a story about that. Probably probably a phone, or probably like a holiday.
Okay. I spent too much money on holidays, I think, when I was a little bit younger, and which made me not been able to do other things that maybe I should have done first. Do you have anything in your life like that you kind of spent a lot of money on? Are you a going out person? Would you prefer to go on holiday or buy something?
I would prefer to go on holiday.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm not really a big spender, to be honest. I would say gadgets are probably what I spend most money on. Laptop, phone. I don't drive, so that's
you don't
not
have
one.
the expense. Do you know if you have a like a diehard fan for Sheer Chemistry? Do you have? Is it a set of fans, or maybe one or two people that are kind of like? Do you have that at all?
Yeah, there's quite a few. Like there's someone who bought twice in a day yesterday.
Amazing.
And he's bought like 19 times. It's a he. He's bought 19 times this year. So yeah, there are some.
Do you get new buyers all the time, or is there?
Well, at the moment, the return rate is about 35%. So there's constantly people coming back, but there's always new people.
Have you thought about maybe changing it to a subscription model? Have you ever thought? Because people have done the socks before. I've seen stuff like that. Have you ever?
Yes, that's definitely been something that I've been thinking about. And now that we're coming out of lockdown completely, I think it's something that I should definitely properly do.
Do you think your marketing gets as much attention as you'd like? Does it kind of hit the people that you would want? Because what is your main channel of marketing? Is it social media? And does it get the attention that you like?
It's a good question. So, yes. my main channel is social media. My main channel of social media is Instagram. We have played with TikTok, but it's just not native to me, so it's been hard to sustain it. Without, a Gen Z in the business. Although now we do have someone. But in terms of, does it get the awareness that I want it to? Definitely not. Nowhere near. And so it's about exploring new channels, but then it's also about the time that it takes to explore new channels, which is what I find challenging. So things that I would really like to invest more in are things like Google ads and even YouTube ads and more kind of SEO mechanisms, which just means writing more content and being intentional of the words that we put on our website. Influencer marketing. I really do.
I think that's a good one. Influencer marketing. I think that's kind of, I would say untapped with smaller businesses. With bigger businesses, if you, I've read like annual reports of Nike, for instance, which is a fashion brand, and if you read some of the risks, one of the risks that they note in the 10K, like the annual report, is not being able to get high-profiled sports and big personalities wearing the brand. That's a risk.
Really?
Yeah. So then that would lead me to believe that it's a massive thing to get Drake wearing Jordans or Jordan wearing the Jordans or whoever wearing these Nike products. So that makes me think that if they're doing it and it's stated as a big risk within the company, then why aren't small companies looking at it and thinking, well, this is how we can really make money if we get the people that people are paying attention to, if we can get them to endorse what we're doing, it's got to be a massive lift for your business.
Absolutely.
So I would say,
and I think Nike is really the pioneer of influencer marketing and kind of piggybacking on influential people, broadly speaking, and even like Gymshark, the more new age version, but they've really made their name through influencer marketing. So it's definitely something that I do want to do, and I know that there is a way to do it low budget. So it's just about manpower.
So are there any brands that kind of inspire you, that you kind of like, that you look up to a little bit?
Yeah, well, Spanx, of course, is one of them. You know, Sarah Blakely is amazing, and she's actually in the space, and one of the first to do it in a big and meaningful way. You know, her business is worth now over $1 billion, which is wild. And I saw there's a viral video going around of her gifting all of her employees two first class tickets to anywhere they want in the world. You know? Amazing. So that is the level of business success that I aspire to get to. But there's many other brands, like even like Fenty Beauty, Rihanna's brand. She's done amazingly well in just changing a whole category. And forcing the industry to change, because prior to her, a lot of the mainstream beauty brands would just say, there's no market for this. We can't afford to have 40 shades. And then she came in and did it with ease. So they're two people who I really admire, who are really shaking up the industry and doing it in a very authentic way.
Cool. Because you've kind of collaborated with other brands and what have you. Tell me a little bit about, is it NARS? The collaboration with them. Tell me a bit how that came about.
Yeah, so we did a collaboration for the Sheer Chemistry 2nd anniversary, and it was quite organic with how it came about. At the time, I went to a running club. Well, it's not a club, it's a crew called Rundem Crew in Shoreditch, and NARS has a store just in Spitalfield, just around the corner, and I was walking past with a friend, and I thought, wouldn't it be cool if we did a collab in store, and then we kind of played with the matching of makeup and foundations and the matching of tights. And so I actually with that thought, went in the store and I told them what I was thinking. It was very on the fly. And they said, yeah, it sounds great. Send us an email. And then it kind of escalated from there. So it was a really great event. It was called the New Nude Masterclass. And it started off with a masterclass in kind of their new range of makeup, and then we went into a tights matching session, and then we had drinks and bubbles and photos and everything. So it was really good. And then we went on to do several pop-ups with them, like on the weekend, where we just set up shop basically in their shop. And then did the kind of dual sell, which worked really well, because a lot of their customers are naturally our customers. So when we do collaborations, it's about doing it in a really meaningful way, and one with brands that share our values, as well as like align with who we're trying to serve.
Back to like the parents thing, did your parents kind of carve a path for you for careers? Did they kind of say maybe you should go this way, and are they happy with the choice that you've made?
Yeah. To be honest, no. I think the funny thing about my mum especially is she said, don't do law. And if you do it after you've done something else. Okay. So that was her advice. So I get it, because if I was to choose to go into law now, it would probably be specializing like commercial law or business law, which I've got some experience in, and therefore it can lend nicely into the
transferable
legal. Yeah, so I get that. She in particular was always about just finding my own path. I don't know if she's got over me not running anymore, though. I think that really hurt her. But
she was a keen supporter, was she?
She's my most avid supporter. So she supports me in everything that I do, wholeheartedly. So, and I guess because she's so invested, if it doesn't work out, she's upset. She was definitely for me going down the sports route. But she loves the fact that I'm doing my own thing. She loves the fact that I'm evolving in my own way and creating my own path. So I don't think she would really want it any other way.
Okay. Well, that's cool. So you went to private school. Would you, if you had to have kids, would you want the same path for your kids?
It depends. So I guess private school in Australia it feels slightly different to private school here. I feel like there's a more ingrained class system here.
Okay. There is. There is here for sure. I'm not sure about Australia, but
whereas in Australia it's more new money, Okay. So I feel like it was very grounding, the school that I went to. And it was a lot more accessible than I feel that private schools are here. So saying that, it really depends where I am in the world. It really depends. So I think if I were here, I'm not sure if I would feel the need to send them to private school. So when we did come here, we went to a Catholic school in Essex, not too far from here actually. And that was great. It served us well. Me and my brother went to the same school. I don't think I would feel the need to, but it depends.
Okay, on to relationships and money. Do you think it's important for your partner to make more money than you?
I don't think it's important, but I think it's nice. I guess in my position, because I guess entrepreneurship and the money that you make can be quite volatile. It's nice to have that kind of financial stability in the other person that you're with, or that I'm with. My partner, for example, he has a full-time job. He's a data analyst, but he's also very creative. So he produces music, and makes apps and so many other things. So yeah, I think it is helpful for someone to be a little bit more stable.
Do you think alike when it comes to finances? Do you think the same way when it comes to personal finance?
Yeah, and we speak openly about it, and I think that's really something that's important in a relationship. So especially when we were going to move in together, we spoke about, you know, where we are right now, where we want to be, and we have like collective and separate financial goals, and check in with each other on that. And we had a recent check in, and we were like, yeah, we're not where we're supposed to be.
Okay. Well, that's fair. This is what you want, right? You want the little milestones.
Yeah.
As long as you're talking about it, I think that's the most important thing. Just being open. I think there's a lot of talk about finance and roles in a romantic relationship. And I guess it's just being open is probably like the best thing. You know, you're still paying for your loan, your student loan. Do you see yourself paying for any other type of education, small or large? Do you see that as important or not important? Or?
I was actually having this conversation with a friend who's thinking about doing an MBA or a master's, which have huge price tags on it. I didn't understand. I didn't know that it was so much.
Masters, crazy.
So, and the advice that I gave her, because she's on the fence, is like, only do it if you're really passionate about it. You know, she's also an entrepreneur, and so that's the advice that I gave is the advice that I would give to myself. So at the moment, there's no subject area that I'm truly, truly passionate about that I would want to explore and invest in. But I think there will come a day when I'm like, actually, this is something that I really want to invest my time in, and I think I'll truly enjoy it, and I think I'll truly grow through that experience. But I don't feel the need to just get accolades for the sake of getting accolades. Like I personally don't agree with that, because I just think practical experience is a lot more valuable.
100%. You really just got to do it, haven't you? And it's the best teacher, isn't it?
Yeah.
Really? As much as it is cool to certain things, I guess when things are technical.
Yes.
And you know, there's no way around it. Rather than someone showing you. Apart from that, you kind of learn as you go, I guess, right? Okay, so do you have an overarching goal for Sheer Chemistry? A big kind of overarching goal? What is that?
Yeah, well, I guess, you know, our mission is to bring inclusivity and representation to the world. But I guess in a practical sense, I just want to be international, world-renowned brand that is a multi-million-pound business.
Get it. Yeah, man. Receive it and get it.
Yeah.
Man. It sounds dope. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. And do you have any ideas for new products for Sheer Chemistry that you could share with us?
Yes. Well, we actually dropped a new product today.
Hot off the press.
Yes. So it's called Euphoria, which is a performance fishnet tights. We have advertised it for Carnival because Carnival is synonymous with fishnet tights, and it has been probably the most asked for product. But then at the end of summer, we have got some dance tights coming along. So you mentioned ballet shoes. So ballet tights go in the same breath.
Of course,
which have traditionally been pink, because ballerinas have traditionally been a pale tone. But as we all know, the ballet industry is a lot more inclusive, is a lot more diverse. There's many black and brown dancers, black and brown ballerinas. And so it is important for us to really celebrate the individuality and diversity that exist in the industry, and having tights that represent your skin tone is part of that. So yeah, that's what's going to be coming out in at the end of summer.
So are they a short run, or is that something that you're going to continue to kind of produce?
Yeah, so for the Carnival tights, at the moment it's a limited edition, so they are a short run. But gauging from this experience, we'll see how that evolves, and I'm sure it will become a staple product. It might just be for the summer or for the carnival seasons, which are summer and the beginning of the year, February. But we'll see. For the dance tights, this is a permanent product, so it will be part of our range, So we really want to have this as part of uniform policy in schools, and we're having those conversations now.
So where can people pick that up? Like, would it be online or will it be in stores?
It will be online first. But one of the things that we're trying to do is get in contact with all the various dance schools, ballet schools, so that they can tell their students and they can have us available.
Because there are uniform shops as well, because there's a lot of schools that only sell kind of their uniform to specific shops, and maybe that's a revenue for you.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll also explore that.
Fantastic, good. I hope you all the best. I wish you all the best. I hope it works out amazing for you. It's been great speaking to you. Really insightful, amazing business, amazing idea, and I hope you wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Everything discussed on this podcast is either my opinion or the opinion of my guest, and not to be taken as financial or investment advice. It's for entertainment and educational purposes only. I hope you enjoyed it.